All right, everybody. Hey, welcome. It's Sunday. I'm Stacy Budge Camison with UrbanGypZ, and today I'm at my floor loom. I'm going to show you about how I weave on this traditional loom Sayori style. And so I'm just going to be working on this piece and answering questions. I have my iPad set up over here. I'm actually broadcasting from my phone, which is something kind of new for me. Well, actually, I've done it before. It's just, that's the easiest way for me to broadcast when I'm not in front of my computer. Anyway, so see, I got new glasses. I can actually see computer screen. These are my, anyway, my close glasses, but I still have to get my distance glasses because I'm blind as a bat. Anyway, so yeah, so today, like I said, I'm going to be working on this floor loom. I'm actually wearing pants today. I don't know if you guys got my email, and you're not mistaken. I did have to delete last Sunday's live cast, but that's okay. We're gonna start with this one today and keep making more. All right, so I'm going to switch this camera around and kind of tell you what I'm working on here. But first I want to talk about the class, the Beyond the Basics series. It's a series of classes where I take, a lot of these books that are behind me, and I have found some old school weaving techniques and kind of updated them for today's yarns and fibers and equipment and stuff like that. And so I have made a series of classes. So far there's 4 up. This will be the 5th class out of 10. So we have 5 more classes coming. But this class is Lace and Open Space, and pre-registration open for that. And I'll put a link in the show notes. And if you're on my newsletter, you'll get information about that on Wednesday. But if you're not on my newsletter, click in the, I'm going to put a link in the comments and join my newsletter because I share lots of fun stuff. So, all right, I'm gonna switch the camera around and let's talk about where I'm at. All right, and I think switching the camera around is just gonna be a matter of doing this. Yay! All right, so this is what I'm working on. And I tell you what I've done. I measured out a piece of cotton string, and this is where we're at so far. So, yeah, so this is, I've just got, I measured this out. I think it measures 80 inches. I could be wrong. I think it's 80 inches. Okay, so I've got just this much more to go. What's that, like 8 inches maybe? More to go. And so what I've been doing, I don't know if you guys can see here, this is a pattern. I have my tie-ups set in a way that that creates my shafts slayed in a way that it creates, I can't think of what this, maybe it's a rose path. I can't remember. Anyway, so that's what I'm working on. So what I do is I use the patterning from the weaving from this traditional loom, and I use it like I would a texture. I mean, I guess a lot of people, what they do is they would maybe, weave the fabric in this one pattern, but I kind of make it almost like a part of a patchwork. So instead of maybe using, so maybe instead of using the like a textured yarn or something like that, then I just use this patterning. All right, so what I want to do next, now what I do have though is the 2 end petals. I don't know if you can see my petals. I have 2 petals that just do the regular, over and under kind of weave, okay, like you would think of traditional weaving. And that's what I use for most of this weaving. So what I want to do next is I'm going to use this. This is a hand spun that I made, and I've been spinning, I don't know if you can see these, I've been spinning kind of thin and then adding like a little bit of texture. And I'm doing that with this kind of weaving in mind. So a lot of the stuff that I'm spinning is kind of that way. Let me show you these. This is another one that I've, sorry y'all, spun that same way. So you can see for the most part it's rather thin, but I'll have areas where there's some locks. Here's a good hot pink, where there's some locks. And that's gonna pop out because the contrast between the thin single ply spin and the locks is gonna really pop out. So that's what I mostly have been spinning with. And also too, right now I'm working with this hand-dyed sock yarn. And that's the perfect weight for getting this patterning in. Okay, so what I'm about to do is I'm about to do just a few more rows of this. But I want to add, I don't know if you can see, this 2-ply thing. I think I showed this to you guys last week if you guys happened to catch that. And it's got like all kinds of crazy sparkle and Angelina. And this is, hold on. This is actually part of this skein. This is I used this in the class that was the art yarn warps. So this is a really super chunky 2-ply. I love this yarn, and I've been kind of hoarding it a little bit. So I have just this little bit of length, and it has lots of sparkle. It's picking up a lot of the greens and the browns and the blues that I've been using in here. So I want to lay this across, but I don't want to lay it across here, and I don't want all of this warp to cover it up. So I was looking at my tie-ups, and this is where I'm at right now so far on this patterning. Let me put this over here. And what it's doing is 3 warp yarns up and 3 down. And I think that's going to give me a nice big space to where these are going to show off. So I'm just going to lay this across in here. All right. Hey, Wayne from the UK. Glad you could join us. Okay. All right. So you see, and then I can lay this. I don't know. I think I might want to take some of these areas with a little bit of texture and pop it out, you know, like I do. So I'm going to do this, but I don't want it to go all the way across. I'm going to double this back over here and lay this in. I think that I want it to pop out there. So I'm just creating a couple of loops in here just to show off some of that texture. This, pop that in, and then come back with this piece here. So you see, so it's not going all the way to the ends, and I'm going to continue to work this pattern for a little bit. I'm going to let that little end stick out right there, and same with that. All right, but I think I need some more. All right, so that's going to create this little knobby texture and show off some of that super sparkle areas. All right, so that's that. Beat that kind of into place. So I don't know if you can see, this is where I keep track of my pattern. So I have this little thing here. So I was on the 3rd petal. All right, so I'm going to just do a little bit here. Make sure I'm going around my yarns. So yes, this is, hey Kathy, hey Epiphany London. I think your name's Susan. Is that right, Epiphany London? I'm not sure. I could be wrong. Okay. What was I going to say? I don't remember. All right, I'm just weaving. Okay. So I'm continuing on with this. So yeah, this is the scary loom. Actually, yes and no. this is the loom I got after I learned how to, actually, I don't know if you can see under here. Can you see that right there? That's the scary loom. That was the scary loom. That's my Structo. It's a table loom, and I had bought that, oh gosh, 9 years ago? Ages ago. I mean, ages ago. And I had found it on I found it on Craigslist and had to drive about an hour and a half to a little town outside of Asheville to go pick it up, have my husband go with me. And it was somebody's grandma died, and I didn't realize that a $50 loom was going to cost me upwards of about another $150 to repair it. But there it is. Now it's working, and I took that class to learn how to. I took a class from my Weaver's Guild and learned how to warp this loom, the loom, and got brave enough to warp that loom. And okay, see, I'm kind of liking that. I'm gonna let it go just a little longer. Got brave enough to warp that loom, and ended up then deciding that, yeah, I wanted to buy a floor loom. So I scoured the internet, all the pages, and I will put links in the show notes to the blog post where I talk about buying used equipment. I have 2 blog posts I wrote about that. And also, if you're part of the Fiber Art Collective, in the files, I put in the files links to places where you can find used equipment. So I'm gonna, again, link those things in the show notes. So this I got from an estate sale in Raleigh. Somebody's mama died, and it needed some work. I had to, this is a new reed, but the reed that came with it was pretty rusty. So Sue, yes, hey Sue, yay! All right. So the reed that came with this was pretty rusty, but I did manage to get a lot of the rust off of the original reed. But I bought a couple of other reeds, and the reed that came with it was actually was six dents per inch. So it was pretty good for some chunky yarn. And then this is a 10 dents per inch, which is perfect for like this kind of, this is mostly like a, I don't know, like an 8 or 5 weaving yarn. There's a variety of stuff. I mean, I've got this, and I've got some novelty yarn in here. But anyway, so I got this 10, and I've got a 12, I believe. So other than that, I had to clean up the wood. And then these cables that are, I had to replace all of these. And luckily, this is a Harrisville design, and they still make these looms. So when I replaced the cables, I mean, they were able to just give me cables that fit, and all I had to do was just attach them. And then I went and got some new S-hooks and chain. The chains came with it, but I had to get some new S-hooks from Home Depot. And that was it. I mean, you know, it took about a week to clean it up, get the rust off of it, and wait for those cables to come in. Because the cables were in place when I bought it, but the original cables were leather, so they were pretty dry rotted. And on the trip home, they outright broke. They didn't survive the drive home. But these, the new cables they have are like a plastic coated steel cable or something. I don't know, metal cable. Anyway, but yeah, so that's this loom. So once I took that class, I was okay with warping this loom. It takes a good day or two sometimes to warp this loom. And I tell you, twice when I've warped it, I think I've warped it maybe a total of 4 times, and 2 of those times I've had to, it was a tangled mess. Alright, so I'm going to cut this and move on to the next. But yeah, this is, okay, I'm stopping at the 3, I think. No. 3. Yes, 3. Alright, so yeah, so what I still need practice warping, and I only know how to warp front to back. I hear that warping back to front is a good way, but I haven't done that yet. But they teach classes at my Weavers Guild, so maybe I'll take that and learn how to do that. Alright, so I'm going to weave with this a little bit, and I like this because it's going to pick up some of these colors, and then there's some more colors in the rest of the fabric here as well. Okay. And this is a boat shuttle that came with it, as well as this bench that I'm sitting on. So, oh, thank you, Judy. Alright, so now I'm just gonna go to a regular old Tabby Weave, which is, oh, there's something underneath my pedal. Alright, a regular Tabby Weave, which is, so the 1 and 3 and the 2 and 4 are moving. Now, what I really like, okay, so this is what I'm using. Technically, I'm using this in this kind of in the similar way that I might use a Sayori loom if I had a Sayori loom. And the difference too is that a lot of the Sayori looms are just 2 shafts, but they have come out with the 4 shafts, which I like, but for the most part, I think a lot of people find, and I'm finding that I really just use the Tabby Weave mostly because so much interest, you know, is happening with the yarn, honestly. So, actually I'm going to go the other way because I'm doing that because I put an end over here, so I want to start the end way over here. Alright. So yeah, that's, I'm going to have to be pulling that through because that, the chunky stuff is having a hard time coming through this slot. So I have to be mindful of that. But yeah, so instead of a Sayori loom, this is what I got, because this was cheaper than a Sayori loom, even though it doesn't have all the awesome bells and whistles that come with a Sayori loom. A Sayori makes it really easy to warp because you can switch out projects because you can remove like the inner stuff and pop the warp off the beam really easily, whereas this, you know, I'm kind of stuck weaving this, which is fine. Okay. Oops. I am going, yeah. Wait, this I need to go under here. Alright. And what I'm doing is trying to make sure I'm consistent about if I'm going over or under the end, the selvage yarns, edges. Alright, so this, you know what, I'm trying to decide. I think I'm gonna let just that loop come through with the, because I have these locks right in here, but I don't think I want to twist them out into a loop like I did here. I think I just want it to be kind of flat and to pop that out, because I think I did the same thing earlier on. Okay. Again, I'm trying to be consistent about if I'm going over or under the end, so I can make sure to, because these right here, they're not going through any of the heddles, so these are my salvage ends. So I want to make sure that I'm going over or under this. Sorry I'm late. Robin, you're not late. You're just fine. Okay, so if you have any questions, give a holler. So yeah, this is what I got, and this is, so I've been practicing, I mean, I guess I've been weaving on this for about a year. And with the exception of, at Christmas, I made a bunch of hand towels, kitchen towels, which I swore I'd never do that, weave kitchen towels. But you know what? Once I got this loom I saw the appeal of weaving your own kitchen towels, and so I did. And I gave away a bunch at Christmas. And I'm going to link in the show notes because I documented that on that process on Vlogmas last year. And Vlogmas is where I posted a video every day from December 1st through Christmas. Okay. Or maybe it was 2 years ago that I did that. Was it 2 years? No, I think it was last year because I ended up not posting. I ended up stopping a weekend because that's when my mom had her stroke. Was right a weekend of Vlogmas. So we had to stop and go to Alabama, and I didn't think it was appropriate for me to vlog during that time. But anyway, and she is doing like really good. She's still not 100%, but she's doing amazing. She's driving, even though that she has to have somebody else in the car with her, and she still forgets her words every now and again. But for the most part, she's not in physical therapy anymore. Okay, I don't know that I'm loving that fuzzy sticking out. I'm going to leave that one, but you know what? This one I'm not. This one I'm going to... Where was I? I'm going to let that just be beaten down in there. Yeah, I think I like that better. And I'll leave this one. But I think... Alright. Anyway, but yeah, I'll link in the Vlogmas. I'll show you the dish towels. And I tell you, those are my favorite freaking dish towels. I love them. I made them out of linen and cotton. But, you know, I'll be honest. If I'm going to make dish towels again, I think I'm going to do it on that table loom. Because, you know, when I make them, I'd like to put on a big, long warp and make a bunch at once. And sometimes I want to work on something more creative. So I think once I get this piece off of the Structo loom, then I'm going to turn around and start warping that for dish towels, because we really like my hand woven dish towels. Alright, and I like how this pink is popping that out right there. And I tell you too, when you do this kind of weaving, because most people, when they're weaving on this kind of loom, they just, you know, are throwing back and forth. They're going really fast. But this, I don't know, this kind of weaving takes, you know, I'm being a little more mindful about the textures and where they're lying, and so it goes a lot slower, for sure. Anyway. Oh, you see? No, I forgot to get that end in. I'm not being mindful. Hold on. So if this was... Alright, yes, we're going under. Under from the right, over from the left. Okay. I don't know if you guys can even see. I guess you can see some. I'll pull the phone down and show you some of those textures up close. Now here's a little pink whoop-de-doo here, and I think I'm going to let that pop out. I'm not going to loop it, but I'm going to let it pop out there. See, because then that kind of picks up here. There's a little bit here, but that kind of picks up a little bit right there. Yeah, that's right. Okay. And I think what I'm going to do, since I'm really close to the end, is I'm going to weave with this, since there's so much going on in this yarn, weave with this up until it's time for me to advance it. And then the last little bit, I'm going to use something a little plain, so I can do a hem stitch on the end. All right. Here's some more of that pink stuff. And then pop a little bit of that texture out through here again, and this one here too. All right, I'll show you guys. Whoop. All right. Whoop. I'm trying to do this and look on my iPad, so you can see the textures going on there. But for the most part, there's a lot going on in this yarn. So I'm just gonna weave pretty plain with that, and then as I come across the locks, just kind of decide in that moment. But you can also see a little better here, the patterning. Oh, there we go. You can see a little better the patterning right there. Okay. All right. There it is. Okay. Let's see, where was I? All right, here we are. But yeah, so I would love to have a Sayori loom. And maybe one day I'll still get one. But in the meantime, I really like this loom. And like I said, I can get them for reasonable. I mean, there's all kinds of price points. And this one, I was on the fence about the Harrisville designs because these hang, you know, if other jack looms are really a little more, a little sturdier, that, you know, that it usually those push up from the bottom. And I really would like a sack wolf pup or mighty wolf, any of those really, honestly. But those are super expensive. Oh, look at that. Zowie. Okay. Anyway, that's what I really wanted, but I couldn't find one in a price range that I could afford, which is fine because what I could afford was nowhere near. If somebody was selling their wolf pup for that cheap, I honestly would encourage them to charge more. So anyway, but that's, oh yeah, look at that. That's going to land in a perfect place. All right, but I mean, I like the Sayori looms. You know what? This I'm gonna loop this because it's such a nice big chunky texture, and it's landing in a really good place. But like I said, I couldn't find. I just didn't have the money for it. So this again, like I said, I've got this at a yard sale. But you can, the Facebook groups and all, they have really good priced ones, and sometimes. Weavers guilds will sell equipment to raise money, and they'll have stuff for pretty reasonable. I saw several that I'd swear I was gonna drive to Virginia and go check out some stuff, but this one came up and it was priced right. But you can find them. I mean, you can find some for a couple hundred. Up to 1,000 really is really a good price for a loom. But you know, $1,000, then I probably would go ahead and get the loom. The probably go ahead and get the Sayori loom I want, because really the one I want is the Piccolo, which is really the cheapest one. And I had a chance to weave on a bunch of different looms at the Sayori studio in Chapel Hill, and I'll put a link to Dawn's website in the show notes. But yeah, that Sayori, I tried a bunch of different ones, and I really liked the Piccolo because it was small, it was no frills, but it was, I mean, it was perfect. It was perfect for what I wanted to do. And for that matter, if I wanted to do something fancier, I have this loom. I mean, their 4-shaft is nice, but there's something about the way that the clamp is on the pedals that I kept hitting my foot wrong. And it's, I think for a 4-shaft loom, there are better 4-shaft looms out there. But the Sayori, but I don't know. Given that as well, though, the way that you warp, you can buy pre-wound warps and pop out the inside sections and start new projects. I mean, that's something you can't beat. But yeah, the Piccolo is what I would want, and that usually runs about, I don't know, like $1,200. So, but that's just my opinion. But yeah, otherwise, but I don't know. If I had to choose between like a wolf pup or a Piccolo, I think I would go for the wolf pup. I don't know. I say that. I say that. I could be wrong. All right. Now look at this. This is another bunch of, that's going to land right there. So I'm going to try and pop that out as well, because you see what's happening here is it's creating a composition with this pink going up through here. And I like diagonals going across my piece because that breaks up that stripe thing. I'm going to have to advance my warp in a minute too. Alright, so as I pull this up, let's see. Yeah. I'm going to let that little piece be on the end, and I'm going to loop some of this stuff out here. If that makes sense. And I pulled out this, there's a little bit of sorry, that's a bit of sorry ribbon scrap that got spun into here. And so I think that makes a nice little contrast right there. Give myself some more room. Pop this out a little bit too. Oh, but you know what? Okay, I need to redo this because you know what? I'm going to leave it. I have 2 picks that are in the same shed. And normally I would take it out and throw it back through, but you know what? I'm going to leave it because I think adding that little bit of thick right there is, I don't have a problem with it. I think I'm okay with that. All right. Let me do one more right here, and then it'll be time to advance that warp. Okay, so now I'm going to advance it. And that's another thing. The break on this was in good condition too. That she kept it up pretty well. I think it was just that, like I said, the leather was pretty dry rotted. So, but it probably was holding okay. It's just I had to lay it down in the car to move it, and it just snapped it. But it probably would have snapped anyway. Better to snap now than to snap in the middle of a project. So that's what I say. All right. So look, I've got another bit that's going to show up about right there. That's going to be perfect. Okay. Let's see where we're at as far as this goes. Okay, we're getting there. So I guess when I get to about this part. Okay, so let me explain. This string, I measured out how long I wanted. There I am. I measured out how long I wanted my shawl to be, and which is 80 inches, which is longer than a measuring tape would be. That's why I use this yarn, this bit of cotton yarn. And then what I'll do sometimes is tie knots to where, like if I'm working along and say, well, I don't want this to be any longer than this, then I might tie a knot here. So as I measure, then I'll remember exactly where I wanted to stop that section. But I'll tie this to the beginning of the shawl, and then as I wind it on, I can keep track of how long this piece is. So that's handy, because I did calculate this warp for 2 shawls. Actually, honestly, I calculated it for 3 shawls, and then ended up having to cut the warp because it was so tangled. It was bad. So I cut off a length long enough for the 3rd shawl, and just kept 2, and then I can go back and warp the 3rd one again on here. Okay, see, look at that. That's gonna be perfect. Although that's, no, you know what? I'm gonna let that. I'm gonna just let it kind of come through, because I think to pop it out too much is going to be too much, because that's a lot of lock clustered in this one area. Okay. And this green I'm not going to pop out because I want it to be just a thick texture like I have here. Anybody have any questions? No questions today? It is rainy today, which is perfect weather for weaving. Weaving and watching movies. I started to go, I guess the Breaking Bad movie called El Camino is on Netflix that dropped this weekend, and I was gonna watch it, but it's been a while since I've watched Breaking Bad, so I decided before I watch the movie I should watch Breaking Bad again, which could take me weeks to finish, which is fine. So I started watching that again. When I watched Breaking Bad the first go round, I was getting ready to go to Taos for the On Higher Ground with Jane Thornley, her creative cadre. I was teaching art journaling and designing with grids, with gridded fabric. And so as I was getting yarn and stuff ready to sell at that workshop, I was watching Breaking Bad because I was going to New Mexico, so it only made sense for me to watch that show before I left. Anyway, so yeah, and that cadre is about to happen. Well, it's happening in a year, a little less than a year, in September of 2020. I'll be back there teaching art journaling. Sorry, my alarm goes off. All right. So, what time is it? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I've got 20 minutes, and then I've got to go get ready for a mastermind meeting. So, all right. Well, we're making some progress. Well, we've got a good bit woven here. Anyway, so yeah, the cadre in Taos, that's going to be on the end of September in 2020, and we're getting ready to release information on that. And I will be teaching, art journaling for fiber artists, and it's about how to use your sketchbook to gather inspirations and stuff like that. There'll be and I'll put a link to some of the other teachers who are going to be there. It's going to be really awesome. It's such a house is so wonderful. That was the first time I'd ever been to the desert. Was when I went to that cadre, and it is so vastly different from where I'm living now, or at least at the time I was living in Asheville. So living in the Appalachians and then going to the desert, it was so different. And it was so wonderful. So very inspiring. Oh, now we got to more of that pink stuff right there. But yeah, but before that, what I'm also doing is I've got an art journaling membership that's going to drop probably before the end of the year. I'm going to open up. It'll be in beta test before the end of the year, because what's happening is I'm trying to gather some information and ideas for that class. And it's also, I mean, because I don't know, art journaling, especially with this kind of freeform art weaving, that's because of that freeform art weaving, it's really a lot. There's so much you can find inspiration if you're doing like the daily journaling. All right, hold on. I see that there's a comment. Let me get through this really quick. Adjust that. It's getting hung up on this spindle here. All right, Stacy, could you make the camera zoom in closer to your weaving? Let's see if I can do that. All right. Be a little better. It might not, but you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to pull the camera off and show it to you before I go. Because this, I tell you, all right, here, I can do that. Let me do that really quick. There it is. Yeah, it's really, okay, so you can see the yarn here. There's a little bit of a delay, so let me see if I can. All right, so you can see the yarn here. And then the weaving, it's really just the regular tabby weaving. And then every now and again I'm pulling out just a little bit of the locks, because what I did, I don't know if you can see, hold on, is that every now and again, let's see, I mean there's a lot of areas you can see right through here where I spun locks into this kind of finished single, and I spun the single thin on purpose with this kind of weaving in mind. So let me put that back. Oi, oi, oi. There. All right, so yeah. Let me get that back into place. So I spun this kind of thin with this kind of weaving in mind, and then I let the textures pop out in, as you know, I let the textures be a real contrast and chunky part. I imagine it isn't super clear. The yarn is mostly fine and smooth with punctuated by lots. Yes, that's exactly right. So let me see if I can show you this, because I've been doing a couple of yarns that way. And then this one, all right, let me show you this. So this yarn here is the same. It's in purples. Actually, and I'll put a link below, because this I carded on my blending board and then spun up that yarn. I think this is the one I spun up. No, it might be, I think I might have spun one of these others up. But I carded this on my blending board, and that was a live cast. So you can see that, yeah, it's relatively thin, but every now and again I have, you know, some locks that just kind of jump out on there. Okay, same with, this is over here. Same with this one. This also, I carded on my blending board, but you can see there's areas where I've got just some locks. And again, I'll put a link in the show notes because the locks were actually carded. I put those into the blending board first, and then as I pulled them off, you know, they just ended up where they ended up, and then I just, you know, would spin along. So I didn't have to have a pile of locks in my lap as I was spinning. I just had it all together. Well, I thought, yeah, I mean, it makes a really big difference. And you can see too, because I wasn't measuring at all when to do the lock placement. Because you know, when I spun this yarn, I didn't know I was going to use it. I knew I was going to use it for weaving. But what I ended up doing is just letting the locks be where they were. And you can see it's adding, I mean, the way that it's going, I don't know if you guys can tell, because it's going from here to here to here to here, and that's creating a little bit of a diagonal. And then this over here, so it's actually adding some composition, and I'm highlighting that by actually either pulling out loops to accentuate those locks, or like where there's a green, you can see where it's a little thicker, like right through here and right through here, and that's where a green lock had come through. So rather than accentuating as a poof, I just let it be a thicker part of that area. So you've got a lot of thin, and then you might have like a little thick area right through here. But since it's green like the rest of the background, it's kind of adding, it's kind of more subtle. Whereas this pink is in contrast to that green. So I want to accentuate that. So that's why I'm popping that out. I hope that makes sense. Sorry. That's just how my brain works. Okay, so this one, I think I also carded this. I can't remember. It's been almost a year since I've done all this carding and spinning. But this one is similar, but instead of, let's see if you can see, instead of locks, there are like bits of remnant yarn. So what I do is I save all my thrums. I'll show you. Hold on. I'm going to grab it. This bowl was a wedding gift. I never make trifles, so this is what I used it for. This is my trifle bowl, but these are all my thrums. This is from projects. There's like some remnant fiber that maybe I put in there. There's little bits of leather. Some of this stuff, like this right here, these were like sample cards that the yarn shops would get. I used to work at a yarn shop, and I would take home the thrums from the sample cards. This is the cotton yarn that I used for those dish towels I was talking about that I gave away at Christmas. Let's see what else I got in here. Oh, this is from the shawl that I made my niece last year for Christmas. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff in here. There's just stuff. This is some sari silk. Anyway, so I just put it in there. So when I go to add texture, I'll cut it up into bits and throw it into the drum carder or into the blending board. And I try to sandwich it in between some wool, because the wool will hold it into place. So then when I spin, you know, you can see the little bits of yarn in there, so that adds some texture to it. What's a thrum? a thrum, so like if you're working on a knitting project and it's like the little bits of yarn after you weave in the ends, it's just the little bitty short bits. It's usually stuff that people just throw away. I've even have gone to, there was a art quilter. I mean, she was like doing the shows and galleries and stuff like that. She was a corporate, she made these big corporate pieces. And she would use thrift store shirts. And so she would, when she would make quilts, they would have all those little bits of fabric and little bitty threads that they would clip from when they would do all the sewing. And it was all stuff that she would throw away. Well, I was taking it because that stuff makes great texture in art yarn. So I collect stuff like that. And then when it gets too much, I throw it away. I think I have like a big 55-gallon tub, because for a while I was telling all my knitter friends to save their thrums for me, and then it got too much. So, what side bits? Side bits. What side bits? What do you mean side bits? Leftovers of thrums, so side bits. Water lilies, me too. I thought spinning on like that. Now I want to try it. Yeah, it's that this kind of yarn is really great. Like I said, I was doing it. I was spinning with weaving in mind. That's another, I think. Did I do a podcast where I talked about spinning for weaving as opposed to spinning for knitting? I might have. If I have, I'll put it in a link below. And if I haven't, then that's a topic we'll cover. Anyway, but yeah, so what size bits are the best? I think it depends. If it's like a cotton yarn, you want it to be a little longer because, okay, let's see. Here we go. Because things like, okay, so things like this, I don't know if you can see that. Focus. Things like this, that's like a merino single. Those you can cut up really, really small. And the reason being is because then it just becomes a little tuft of wool. And that's going to combine with your wool just fine. So that can be as small as you want it to go. But, however, if you're using, let's see, here we go. Okay, so like, this is cotton warp ends, I think. I would leave these a little longer because cotton's not going to blend into the wool as much. So I would leave them long enough to where as you're spinning, it's going to turn into something that's going to wrap around the yarn. Let me see if I can find a bit. Here's some. This was right here. Let's see if I can get that. Right there. That was like a rayon, or maybe it was a C-cell. Oh, heck. I think it was a C-cell. Here's a nylon piece. Here's a nylon piece right there. I don't know if you can see that. Now that nylon piece wouldn't blend right in if it was cut real short. So I made it long enough so as I'm spinning, if I come across it, then I would let it wrap around. Maybe we should do a video on doing that. On spinning with thrums and bits. That's what we'll do. We'll plan on a video on that. I don't know if it'll be next week, but it'll be within the next few weeks for sure. How's that sound to you guys? All right. Let's see, where was I at? Let me make sure I didn't miss any of these things. Zoom closer. Image isn't clear. Is the yarn mostly fine and smooth, punctuated by locks? Yes. A bit. Knitter's name for leftover. Okay. All right. So we know what thrums are. We talked about what this yarn is, and there that is. Okay. I'm going to shoot a few more rows because then I've got to jump off and get on this online call with my mastermind business partner. So yeah, what the mastermind is that I have a friend. And we hold each other accountable when it comes to our businesses. So I meet with her weekly, and we talk about what's going on for the next week and decide what needs to be done and bounce any ideas off at each other and hold each other accountable so we can get stuff done. So I hadn't been meeting with her for a while. She hikes the Appalachian Trail. She's been working on that. And so she did some hiking earlier this fall, and she's back. So we are meeting for the first time in a couple of months because she's been traveling. All right, good. Yay. All right. So yeah, we're definitely going to do, and that's good because I haven't done a spinning video in a long time. And you know, it's really interesting because, you know, when I tell people what I do, I consider myself a spinner before I consider myself a weaver, really. I really do, because I've been a hand spinner for a while. And all of this is kind of born out of hand spun, because I liked making hand spun art yarns, but when I was selling it, nobody knew what to do with it. And so I started working on information products. Now, okay, I don't know if you can see this. Let's see. Oh, we might have to find a better setup for this. Okay, right here. That's a little bit of sari silk. And I'm trying to decide if I want to pop it out like this, or if I want it to be, I think I'm going to let it be like that. Okay. Oops, are we frozen? Well, maybe not. Oh, I can't tell. Cancel. Oh. Oh, goodness. It looks like I'm frozen. Oh, no. Cancel. Oh, I don't know what happened. Oh, no. Oh, no. Okay, I might have to end this. All right, wait, crap. What's this do? Cancel. I see and hear you. Can you? Okay, because on my side I'm not. I can't see it. Wait. Oh, goodness. Oops. Okay. Okay, on my side it's not. The video's not fine. Okay, yeah, we're going to have to find a better solution for this. I can hear picture looks frozen. Yeah, it looks frozen to me too. Oops, cancel. Okay, you know what? But it is getting to be 4 o'clock, so I'm going to end it from here because I don't know what I just did. Okay, so I'm ending it. All right, everybody, thanks for joining. We'll get this figured out better sometime. At least now I know it's not. At least now I know it's not the streaming. It's something that I accidentally touched. Wait, let me see if this camera will do. No, cancel. Okay. Anyway, all right. All right, everybody, thanks for joining. And yeah, we'll do a spinning video soon. But next week, we'll see. I think I need a little time to prepare that one to card the back. Maybe I'll do a video showing how to card that back. All right, I'll decide by Wednesday. If you haven't joined the email list, sign up for it down below. And otherwise, I will talk to you guys later. All right, talk to you later. Bye.